I just want to welcome all of you on behalf of the GEEP. I'm Judy Browse. I'm the Executive Director of the North American Association for Environmental Education, or NAAE, and we are the Secretariat of the GEEP. And we're so excited to see all of you from all parts of the world joining today because it's really going to be a great discussion. Um, we have such a talented group here to talk about AI and really digging into some of the opportunities and the challenges that AI presents for us. And we also have a wonderful moderator, and I think we're all in for a provocative and lively discussion. For those of you who are not familiar with the GEEP, it stands for the Global Environmental Education Partnership. We've been around for 11 years, and this is a partnership program with colleagues from all over the world. Special thanks to US EPA, the Ministry of Environment in Taiwan, and all of our partners, all of our hubs, GEEP Africa, SACIANE, the Asia Pacific Regional Center, and you can visit the geep.org to find out more. But at a very high level, the GEEP is all about creating a vibrant learning network, and we're all about strengthening environmental education and sharing learning across borders. That's what we are all about. And we are really excited to be able to share new ideas and thinking and insights with our GEEP webinars. We really want to bring new speakers, new thinking, new discussion to the field so that we are all constantly learning. And I just want to thank all of our GEEP partners around the world and our global advisory network, 25 advisors, education experts from all parts of the world who are doing incredible work. And this was from a recent meeting we had in Taiwan. And today our speaker is going to highlight their thinking about AI and looking at ways we can integrate AI into our learning and global environmental education efforts. How do we balance AI with the equity, ethics, the environmental issues, reduce bias, protect privacy, and hopefully you'll walk away with some really useful ideas and new thinking about AI. We got a lot of great questions. Thank you all so much, and we will get to as many as we can. Please put your questions in the chat as you get them, as you're thinking about them. And we will be answering questions in the chat because we have four amazing speakers here. But also we will cover as many as we can live when we get there. And just a reminder, it's a meeting, not a webinar. So please mute yourself unless you're talking, and you can use the closed captioning if you need a language translation. And again, communicate with us in the chat. Everyone will get a copy of the recording and the chat, so you don't need to write down everything. And if you look on your toolbar, for those who don't know Zoom, the chat is down there and the captions. And you have a choice of 31 different language options. Hopefully your language is there if you need that help. And a big, big thank you to Carrie and Madeline for all their support on all of our programming, but especially this webinar. And I'm just so lucky and honored to be able to work with Carrie and Madeline on the NAAE team. And now I am really thrilled to introduce our moderator, Ian Humphreys, who is one of my favorite people in the world, and he will introduce our speakers and help us manage the conversation. Let me just tell you a little bit about Ian. He currently serves as a board member for the Foundation for Environmental Education, or FEE, and he works with so many wonderful global initiatives, including EcoSchools, Young Reporters for the Environment, the Decade for Ecosystem Restoration, and so much more. He works alongside international bodies, including government, business, academia, all trying to tackle climate, biodiversity loss, and pollution. And FEE works closely with NAAE, and as I mentioned before, Ian is a member of the GEEP Advisory Group, and he has been fantastic. He's currently a senior conservation officer for BugLife, an organization that focuses on species recovery planning as part of its wider consortium of organizations that share a passion for saving the small things that run the planet, as BugLife says. Prior to working for BugLife, Ian was the CEO of Keep Northern Ireland Beautiful, where I met him, and he oversaw a number of really amazing programs, including eco school programs in Northern Ireland, climate literacy programs, fellowship programs, and so much more. And as CEO, he built so many meaningful and long-term relationships with government, business, trust, and foundations, and he scaled up the work of Keep Northern Ireland Beautiful. He also established 30 Under 30 Climate Change Makers, which was a country-based version of NAAE's and GEEP's EE 30 Under 30 Leadership Development Program. So, Ian, we are thrilled to have you here. Thank you so much for being part of this webinar. And I'm going to
Thank
stop sharing for a minute so that we can spotlight you.
well, thank you very much for that introduction, Julian. It's 10 years as an advisor on GEEP, and it's been a wonderful 10 years. And I've said to you many times, GEEP creates that space for thinking that we all value so much and yet find so little time to do. So tonight's just another example of that. And I'll say to everybody, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'll not say good night. I think it might be relevant to some of you, but that sounds like we're already finishing, which of course we're not. We're just starting on this very interesting, complex, I would say daunting subject, which is so difficult to know where to start on. And hopefully by the end of tonight, after you've heard our three fantastic speakers, you will have a better idea about this subject and about how it's going to impact and how we can deal with it. Of course, it's not the first webinar that GEEP has organised on this topic, and I think there'll be the link to the previous EE and AI webinar that'll go into the chat. So if you want to pick up and after this, you can go and listen to that one too. Then you'll get another few perspectives on this subject. And of course, all change in life meets some resistance, and AI isn't going to be no different. I remember being at school, taking in my first calculator, which actually run off the mains. It was an LCD rather than LED calculator, and the teachers there were very disdainful of people using calculators and pulled out their slide rule and had a race over various equations and mathematical challenges. But I think AI is probably another sort of league above the introduction of calculators. It is going to affect us all greatly, I think. I've only dabbled in AI myself, looking at how it might help me writing reports. And I think as a minimum, it's going to save us a lot of time searching for stuff, referencing stuff. But of course, at this point, if not for a long time to come, it's going to need the human eye over it to actually make something into a correct, readable, and consistent report in my case. So, of course, you will all know AI is going to have a huge effect on education generally, and of course, environmental education. And I was thinking about this before tonight and thinking, well, there's a couple of things that really come to mind straight away for me, because there's the kind of angle of the use of AI as a tool for teaching and for student learning, and with all the associated challenges, such as how to regulate that, how to reference its use, and so on. And it was interesting reading Yuval Noah Harari's book Nexus, where he was drawing from history and talking about in a completely free information fight, truth tends to lose out. So it'd be interesting to hear the speakers' angles on hearing, what they have to say about the need for how we regulate the use of AI, if at all, if they feel it's needed even, and how that might work. And the second angle then, apart from it being sort of part of our life in use in education, is what I would say is an urgent need for content in curricula to, if you like, train us in the use of AI so that we understand what it really is, what it does, what it doesn't do, and importantly, how it does it. We're being bombarded daily by all forms of advertising and messaging, and I suppose some people will be using AI no differently to try and impact how we spend our money, how we make decisions, etc. So, what safeguards might we need to employ to ensure, we're not potentially steered in the wrong direction by AI? How do we have those inbuilt mechanisms, understanding to apply to the AI world that's coming, um, and how to extract the very huge potential good that it's making available to us whilst avoiding those pitfalls. So I feel I've hardly even scratched the surface of what we'll hear about tonight. Um, but it's a couple of facets that hopefully we'll get some further understanding on tonight. But before we go into speakers, we'd like to find out a bit more about your understanding, your thinking, your knowledge on AI, just to help the speakers in terms of presenting to you. So if you can just complete a short poll for us, we'll give you a couple of minutes to get that done. And then we'll see where we stand on some of the big questions that are being put to you there right now. So if you can just go to the poll and run through there's three questions, and we should get a live view of the answers on those. People, I take it people are finding that all right? Are the thumbs up if you're getting it? I can see answers are starting to come in, so that's good. Must be working. Yep, thank you. So we have three questions. We've got the regularity of use of AI. Are you a regular user, a dabbler? Have you never used it? That's the first question. How often do you use it? The second, what your biggest concern might be around AI? Is it just the whole thing? Or is it some specific thing? Is it the replacement of jobs, for example? And then the third question, what's your overall view of AI? Is it an integral part of our future? Is it something to be wary of? Is it going to speed up technological development? Is it going to speed up was our education process going to speed up? Certainly speeding up the work, I think. What replaces that for people? Does it let us go on and do more productive things? And I can see it's already stimulating some comments in the chat, which is great, and we'll take those into account as well. I'm just trying to see, we've got most people have now participated, just 10 more people. I don't know if they're going to participate or not, but we've got quite a range of people, but most people, a bit like I said in the intro, most people are dabblers. So that's where we probably need to pitch the presentations, although some are daily users and some still think Claude AI is a man. Okay, so there you go. And in the second question, it's a bit more spread evenly across the concerns from environmental impacts, erosion to learning and critical thinking, bias, potential destruction to copywriters and creators' livelihoods, and nobody's worried about automation leading to mass unemployment, though, which is interesting. Although, yes, people are. I get that wrong, of course, because half the people are saying all of it's a problem. So there we go. And the third question then, way out in front, 86% are curious and concerned. So in that middle ground, still sort of weighing up, is this a good thing? Is it a danger? Maybe it's a bit of both, and we just have to be able to use it sensibly. Okay. Well, I will stop there on the poll. I don't know, Judy, do you want anything else to be pulled out from the poll at this stage, or are you happy enough to proceed?
No, I think that's fantastic. And it does show where everybody on this call, I think, represents a lot of what we have found so far. It's
Mm.
everybody's in a different place.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's why we wanted to have this webinar. So thanks, Ian. You did a great job of summarizing.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to move on. We have, as I've said, and as Judy has said, three great speakers. I'm going to introduce them just each in turn in front of their presentations. But just if I can remind you first, Judy has said it already, but pop your questions into the chat. And at the end of the presentations, if we've time after each of them, we will pull some of those questions out and pitch them to the presenter. If you can keep them short and succinct, then we might have a chance to get through a few more, hopefully. So first up, we have Chris Agnew. And Chris leads the AI Hub for Education at the Stanford Accelerator for Learning. And the Hub is a trusted source for education system leaders on what's working and what's not, leveraging AI to benefit students and schools and to reimagine learning. Across 25 years in experiential and applied education, his career spans teaching and executive leadership roles across K-12 and post-secondary settings. Environmental education has shaped his career from the beginning, spending formative years at Knowles, and maybe you'll explain to the audience what Knowles is, and later serving 5 years as the executive director of the Teton Science Schools. And prior to Stanford, Chris led US higher ed strategy and credentials for Multiverse, an ed tech startup using professional apprenticeships as an alternative to college and university. Chris, I'm going to hand the floor to you to present for the next 15 minutes or so on AI and EE.
Well, Ian, thank you so much for that wonderful intro. And I am so excited to be here. And I'm sharing my screen there. Everybody's seeing that okay? This topic is really important to me. And so huge thanks first off to NAAE, GEEP, Judy, and team for this opportunity. Ian, thanks for moderating. And to start it off, I'm going to share some thoughts, some research, some opinions, but I'd say this slide encapsulates what I'm going to talk about for the next 15 minutes. And I'm going to go fast to seed a bunch of ideas, and then we'll have some more time for questions and conversation at the end. But I firmly believe that right now, given the state of the world, disconnection from nature, the skills the world needs, environmental education has never been more important. And nobody can use that as a reason to ignore or disconnect from the topic of AI. It's all the more important. So I'm going to give you a little more like color and texture. Ian did a great intro, but color and texture on myself. I started in education when I was 15 years old. I figured out a way in high school to take a week off of school to volunteer to teach environmental education to fourth graders every spring. I originally thought, what a great way to get out of school. And what I learned in doing this over 15, 16, 17 years of age was that people can learn outside the classroom. People can learn in more experiential, hands-on ways. And learning about nature and the environmental world is essential to ground humans in the world that we're in. And so that launched much of my career for the next 2 decades. For undergrad, I majored in environmental education. I worked for Ian, this company called Knowles National Outdoor Leadership School that runs wilderness expeditions all over the world for many years. There's a photo of my formative group as a student with Knowles right next to the summit of Mount Kenya in the late 90s. This informed my career for many years. I led an organization called the Teton Science Schools for 6 years, residential environmental education programs, K-12 lab school, and a graduate school for education that teaches people how to do the same. And I left that in early 2021. And I left that for a couple big reasons. One was I'd recognized these hands-on learning experiences are essential for young people in creating the future that we imagine and hope for. And they are fundamentally difficult to scale, and there was no path to access for all the kids that needed it with current models. So 5 short years ago, I decided I need more tech experience. I had zero tech professional background prior to this. So about 5 years ago, I said, okay, I need to look at ed tech and what it has to offer to decrease costs and increase access. And so over the last few years, entered into my current role. Ian gave you a little background. We do research at the AI Hub for Education. We build tools for education system leaders to make better decisions on that research. And then we engage the field, bringing together practitioners, researchers, and these AI products to learn from research, and improve over time. So that's a little bit about me. But what I'm going to talk about today, so 4 main reasons why I believe artificial intelligence and environmental education isn't an oxymoron and are actually closely connected. One, we're at a transformational moment, and it creates a real opportunity in this disruption for the skills and experiences that environmental education has to offer. 2, there's a real opportunity about measuring what we truly care about in environmental education that hasn't been possible at scale up until this point. 3, mission impact. Things are hard and getting harder, and AI can help. And 3, environmental impact, front of mind for many, if not all of us, and we can talk a little bit about connections there. So let's get on the same page with a few terms, because I realize we have some new to AI people and some dabblers. So quick run through some terms that you'll hear. Artificial intelligence. Overall, artificial intelligence has been around for 70 years. Started at Dartmouth in the 50s. It's a computer system that can think and learn to solve problems. Machine learning is a type of artificial intelligence. Spell check is a type of artificial intelligence. It's often rules-based. Algorithm. It's a set of step-by-step rules for a computer to follow to finish a task, like a recipe. Search, like Google search. It's an internet tool that goes out, gets information, and returns it back to you. Search is typically rules-based. What I mean by rules-based is if you do it, 2 different people do it, it will return the same results. Now, generative artificial intelligence. This is the big new thing that became publicly highly visible about 3 years ago with the launch of ChatGPT. What is notable here, it's artificial intelligence, it's text-based, it's not rules-based. It's probabilistic. This means if 2 different people input the same thing, they will get different results back because of slightly different variables inputting into the system. And lastly, multimodal. This means that AI is able to not only use text, but also audio and visual, pictures, video, etc., as inputs and outputs. So, quick level set there. Now, let's get into the points I want to cover here. So, transformation. We know education is changing. There's a need and opportunity here with AI. So, I exited grad school in spring 2025. We were in the midst of No Child Left Behind, high stakes testing, and academic rigor focus. I was wanting to work within an environmental education setting. And in many ways, I felt there was no space for me. And often environmental education was seen as a bolt on or a something extra, often had to argue how it might further or fit into this high stakes testing regime. The world is very different 20 years later today. And I think real value and opportunity on where EE is right now in learning experiences actually are increasing in value, and the recognition that learning through experiences has greater value, that durable skills and social emotional learning actually is more needed given that we have these computer systems that know a lot of stuff. And we have these massive pressing wicked problems, things like climate change, that are so big that no one person can solve. So I think this creates this disruption opportunity, creates a great need for environmental education to engage on this topic and actually see a place for itself in more formal education settings, whether that's K-12, whether that's post-secondary, that can, say, serve as a Trojan horse, say, serve as a complement to too much screen time, but there is a need for people to engage at this transformative moment. One tangible way this can be realized is through advancement in measures. So where we're coming from. So again, let's rewind 2005. a lot of focus on test scores, standardized tests, focus on high stakes testing, summative assessments. So where we are today. So we have known as environmental educators that there are many things that these experiences in nature and about nature build in young people and students that are difficult to impossible to measure. Oftentimes, the best means we have of doing this is rubrics, complicated rubrics, high evaluation that are difficult to impossible to scale. There is promise in using artificial intelligence to measure some of these things like metacognition, like sentiment analysis, using multimodal means. So observation of people in the real world, observation of text data that can give us insights into things we really care about, like critical thinking, like curiosity, like creativity. Right now, we are working on a research project with OpenAI and the country of Estonia. They're the first country that's rolling out ChatGPT to high school students. It is actually starting next month. And the research study, the research question is, if AI engagement with high school students has impact on metacognition and durable skill development. So there's some interesting promise in this realm that I think has real implications for the world of environmental education. So that's measures. Next up, mission impact. We've alluded to headwinds, challenges today. I would argue that environmental education as a field is not having the impact needed to change the trajectory we're on. So something has to change. And the headwinds are just getting stronger. So some simple, so we know lots of headwinds out there already, but three I'll name specifically. Bowel-Mouth's cost disease. Some may be familiar with this. This might be new. So high labor fields like education and healthcare don't see productivity gains over time, or only see minimum productivity gains. The world we live in today is getting more and more efficient and more optimized. What that means is the field that we're in gets more expensive relatively than other fields. So the challenge here is our costs in the field of environmental education are accelerating more quickly than other fields, which makes it less accessible to kids. Two, we have the ESSER cliff. This is in the US, but there was a lot of money for schools for a variety of learning experiences post-COVID to recover. That cliff that funding has just ended, and schools are really pulling back on spending and investment, especially things deemed non-essential. And at least in the US, but actually in a majority of global countries, we see shrinking demographics. We see the K-12 population is getting smaller. And so for environmental educations to be able to have impact at scale, it's harder to do when the population you're trying to reach is getting smaller. So within our research in education and AI, we see schools, both K-12 and post-secondary, are often adopting AI to solve three different problems. They're not mutually exclusive. One reason might be for efficiency, to save money, to save teachers time, things like that. Two might be adopting AI to improve student outcomes. Could be math outcomes, it could be literacy outcomes, it could be social emotional outcomes. But their goal in adopting AI is to improve outcomes. The third category, which sadly right now we see much less use cases, is about using AI to reimagine what learning looks like and rethink what a classroom could be, a learning experience could be. This is mission impact. Last one in the last 2 minutes I have here is the environmental impact. Big one here that I'm sure we'll have lots of discussion on the rest of the hour. But quick nature nugget here. So some equivalencies. So 2,000 watt hours of energy consumption is equal to 1 hamburger, is equal to 1,000 to 8,000 AI prompts. I recognize huge variability there, but generating an image versus a quick question uses different amounts of energy. Is equal to streaming a season and a half or two of Stranger Things, Netflix show. It's also the equivalent of about 8,000 Google searches. So all these things use equivalent amount of energy. We need to use judgment to determine what are the best uses, what is negative, what is positive impact. So 3 different ways to think about this. So environmental impacts, we're talking about AI. We think, okay, doesn't AI drive climate change and pull people away from nature? Why are we even engaging on this topic? So 3 things that I think are relevant here. That previous slide about the little nature nugget on impacts, this is a gateway into the importance of AI literacy. So when you think of AI, big tent, people often first think about AI use, AI tool adoption, things like that. When you think AI, it's not only about use and tool adoption. A whole category in and of itself is AI literacy, just learning about AI. You don't even have to use AI to become somewhat AI fundamentally literate. A peer lab of ours at Stanford, Craft, there's a QR code there, has some great resources for educators on AI literacy. Check them out. 2, there's lots of conversation about kind of boycott AI, should environmental education even engage with AI given its impacts? I would argue that is the wrong question to ask because you're too downstream of the question. Further upstream is how do we enable a rapid shift to a green energy future that enables more productivity? My worry is if environmental education fully checks out of the AI conversation, then it hamstrings their ability to actually have positive impact in the ways that are necessary. And 3, there are not answers, but there's potential about AI's ability to drive solutions. There was one story earlier this week on NPR Marketplace about a recycling center in Wisconsin that's using AI to sort materials to have much higher impact and efficacy in recycling. So I'm rounding out on time. A few quick things I'll hit. My ask to you all is not to check out, but the responsibility is on all of us to engage with this conversation, to at least understand what AI is, and to experiment with it to understand how it could be effective to you and how it might not be effective to you, given this transformational time we're in. A few quick resources. Every month, we update the research repository on our website. I'll share it in a moment. That has all the research that does exist on AI relevant to K-12 learners. Here's a spotlight of some research we released earlier this year on teacher use of AI that was looked at 9,000 teachers' adoption of an AI tool at the beginning of last school year. You can read more information at that QR code. And ways to get more information, you can subscribe to our newsletter, read our research repository, and follow the AI Hub. So look forward to all your questions, and thanks for the time.
Thanks very much for kicking us off such a energetic and information-laden way. Chris, that's been a wonderful start to this evening. And we do have a few minutes left for questions. So thank you very much. And I think you covered both the points that I sort of threw out there in the opening about, there's the literacy and then there's the actual use of, and we need both of those to go hand in hand. So thank you for probably you didn't know I was going to put that at the start, but you've covered them anyway. So that's brilliant. From my perspective, I'm learning too. So here's a question from Naomi Wallace. When AI is used for these measurement purposes that you've covered in your talk there, is its process transparent? That is, do you understand exactly what it's doing, or is there a black box element to it?
Oh, Naomi, such a good question. So I could take that a bunch of different places. So right now, the most promising research around measures and is around formative assessment and not summative assessment. So first off, we're talking about giving signal to educators about student learning growth, but we're not talking about making high stakes assessments on student learning. So this would be the ability for AI to say, oh, we think Ian is struggling with this concept here. Why don't you go and check out and go check in with Ian on this topic to see where he needs help? Because a challenge with AI is the black box nature of much of the model's work. And so I won't get into depth here, but many people might have heard of the concepts of AI benchmarks, which are external assessments that allows outside individuals to track AI models' improvements over time and performance against different criteria. You could have an AI math benchmark on how different LLMs perform on math, but you can also have bias benchmarks to glean insights into some of the black box nature and ensure, okay, how biased is this AI or things like that. So this is an area that shows potential, and there are not answers here.
That's great. Thanks, Chris. I think we'll stop there. We're just coming up to 20 minutes, so to keep on track, we'll keep moving. And if there's room for questions at the end, we'll open back out again. But thank you again for that fantastic kickoff tonight. We're going to move now to our second speaker, and that's Dr. Yue Li. Yue is an assistant professor of environmental education in the School of Forest, Fisheries and Geomatics Sciences at the University of Florida, and her research focuses on AI integration into environmental education, professional development for environmental educators, environmental action, and community engagement. And her recent projects explore the role of AI in empowering environmental educators and engaging audiences to advance environmental education practices. She also investigates how the community action projects for the environment framework can be applied to audiences ranging from youth to senior adults. Yue is also a fellow of the Florida Natural Resources Leadership Institute, Class 25, and at UF she teaches environmental education, program development, and conservation behavior. So Yue, I am going to hand the floor over to you for the next 20 minutes. Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much, Ian, for that wonderful introduction. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming to our webinar. My name is Yue Li. I'm an assistant professor at the University of Florida, and here I would like to share a story of my most recent experience with my undergraduates who are going to be environmental educators after they graduate. So I integrated AI into the coursework I just taught this fall semester. And I'm going to share some of my lessons learned, the challenges, and the way how I approach AI in environmental education coursework. And this actually responds to some of your questions when you sign up for this webinar about teacher professional development and also environmental impact of AI, some of the concerns. All right. So before I dive in, I just want to give a little big kind of context where I am. So University of Florida is really trying to promote AI probably as much as what Stanford and many other universities want to do. So we launched a lot of initiatives to integrate AI across curriculum, all the disciplines, colleges, and we have a lot of the AI related courses, and we have a certificate, and we also have a supercomputer, and we have our own AI tools, but with this very kind of the deep caution about AI ethics. So not just about using AI, but how we actually use it in an ethical way. This is an example of the tool we call Navigator Chat. It integrates a lot of large language models and the ones you might have heard about, the most popular one on the market. We also have and I showed a list of examples at the bottom right. So we can choose to use open data, or we can also use some of the models for restricted or sensitive data. So with that, I was thinking, okay, so we have a lot of initiatives try to promote AI in research and teaching all the disciplines, but are our students prepared? Are they, how can we actually support them to critically engage with AI? And what about the role of AI play in the environmental education? So with those questions, and I looked into literature and tried to understand what competencies students should have. And there are a lot of literature out there, but just those are probably most common ones about AI literacy. Is really about a series of competencies people should have about recognizing different types of AI application, understand the fundamentals of AI, apply the concepts in the different contexts, and also critically evaluate AI output, potentially create the applications, and most importantly, navigate ethical implications of AI. So I would like to invite everyone to type in the chat, like in which ways can AI be used in environmental education. I think Chris and Ian already covered some of those, but I want to invite you, maybe very briefly type in the chat, maybe especially from the educators' perspectives, what are the ways AI can be used. I'm going to keep going, but feel free to type in the chat, and I will check the chat history later. All right. And I really like this article. I'm going to share the link in the chat at the end of my presentation. So it summarized the generative AI tools for educators to use, especially based on inquiry-based learning. So it summarized different ways, for example, planning, content creation, evaluation, and teaching assistance. It also provides the tools with links to each of those categories. So I'm going to share a link. No worries, I'm going to share the link at the end. But those kind of summarize that although those is for general education use, but it can also be applied to the field of environmental education. And a few months ago, I did a survey asking non-formal environmental educators how they used AI in their teaching to support teaching. So those are some different ways they mentioned, really align with the table just showed on last slide. So they use the AI for brainstorming, for lesson planning, for content creation, for rephrase or writing articles, and evaluation support. And now I'm going to dive into this project I piloted just in the past few months. So the purpose is really try to integrate AI to enhance the students' engagement in environmental education, also help them to develop some AI competencies, as well as like for myself as a research opportunity to really try to explore the role of environmental AI in the field. And this is the context. This is the course I just taught on environmental education program development. I created this flyer, in summer before the semester started. I thought, oh, that's great. If I mention AI, a lot of undergraduates would be excited about this, right? And then I only had 10 students. It's a very small class, so I was not sure if this flyer actually kind of some students may kind of not wanted to take the course because of the AI component. But I had a great small cohort, so we were able to have a lot of discussions. But also worry maybe some students they also a little afraid of having AI in the course. So anyway, so this is a course I taught. And the goal of integrating AI in the course is to try to promote like this deep understanding of the concepts. I was hoping AI can help students to engage with the concepts and then also understand that technology in integration, not only to support their learning, but as the future environmental educators, I want them to have this competency or like the skills of using technology in their own teaching in the future. And also I wanted them to critically use AI to promote the critical thinking and then have the skill for the future career. So that's my hope. And I used 3 assignments to integrate AI. The first one is ask students to chat with AI on the readings. So for each week, they had a set of readings, 2 or 3. And then I asked them to read first and then chat with AI and reflect. And this is instruction for that assignment. And I asked them to do it within the UF Navigator chat. Just want to kind of take the opportunity to use the tool we have provided at the university and also accessible and free to use. And then this is instruction. I also provide an example chat and try to promote that dialogue and then encourage students to ask questions and also challenge the AI output and criticize it. And this is an example one of the students wrote, and they asked the questions in many different ways. I'm still in the process of analyzing the chats, but this is one I think just want to demonstrate. So, for example, the student kind of argued, "I'm still not confident I can trust the AI output to create meaningful EE content." And then but they kept going on next reading, and then AI provided some of the summary and thoughts on this is actually about NAA's guidelines for excellence. So I just want to show an example. This is the way how students interacted with AI on the readings. And then after each week, we had a little reflection on the experience and asked what challenges they have and how they overcome those challenges and what would they do differently next time they chat with AI. And then they come up with this is a summary of their responses. So just to showcase, they did have some challenges because depending on different AI tools, models they choose, some models could provide very lengthy responses or unnecessary information or not like incorrect information, or it took a long time, or just ignored the questions. So they would say like they need more specific questions, better prompts to get the better output, and then may choose different models, or just I think the key is really how you ask good questions to be able to get the good output. Okay, and the second assignment, I was thinking, okay, maybe there's a role for AI in lesson planning. So in this, students actually they develop a teaching unit, 1 week teaching unit. They pull activities from project learning tree guide, and then I asked them to also develop one activity by using AI and compare, right? So through that comparison, I hope they can develop some critical thinking skills. And this is some of the reflections students came up. And one student was not really into AI and really kind of didn't really want to use AI. But through that assignment, this student did mention like AI provide bigger picture, helpful in some way, and a tailored lesson plan. Another student also mentioned although they didn't want to use AI, but ChatGPT had some of the good ideas, but it's not as detailed as the project learning tree activities, but there are some interesting kind of ideas on the part to be considered. And then going into the third assignment, which was a proposal development. So at that point, because students they shared a lot of concerns, some of them didn't really want to use AI anymore. So I had to kind of adjust the assignment requirement. I said, okay, so from now on, AI is optional. You can use it for brainstorming ideas, for feedback, or you also can choose not to use it and do everything manually by yourself. But no matter which way you choose, I would like you to write a reflection on why or why not you choose or not choose using it, right? And then for this, for those who like to choose AI, I ask them to use AI to kind of generate some outlines, to brainstorming ideas and provide feedback. But then again, they have to kind of refine AI output, not just submit something AI created, but criticize, analyze the strengths and limitations for the proposal development. And in this assignment, I said, okay, so now we open up for other tools. Don't have to limit to Navigator chat because there are some limitations with the tool here. And then I only have a very small class, have 10 students. Only 3 of them choose to continue using AI for this assignment. Very interesting. One of them wrote like how AI actually helped her to brainstorm ideas and especially understand the budget and the funding requirements and organize information. Another one specifically mentioned about the AI-powered tool like Grammarly helped to kind of refine the writing. And most of them choose not to use AI. And those are some of the reasons. One, they mentioned because the impact on the environment is really concerned about that. And also, this is really against the purpose of the course or the program or the field at all. And then they also, some of them mentioned about, okay, this is a practice for me to develop my own skills, and I feel like I don't want AI to take away that from me. And another one mentioned, AI couldn't really provide the helpful feedback. So a variety of reasons they chose not to use it. And then I just want to reflect back to the educators' feedback. From educators, it's kind of the align kind of those responses. They also mentioned the biggest reason for not using AI is really about the environmental impact and also academic integrity, critical thinking, and data and accuracy issue, and then the privacy and data security. So those are the some of the responses from educators. All right. I think I would only have a couple minutes left. I just want to share this is an experiment I tried with my undergraduates who will be the environmental educators in the future. I learned a lot of lessons, and those are the lists. I think, more guidance. I cannot assume they all know how to use AI in a right way. Maybe more examples, but most importantly, when I ask them what are the support they need, and then the last three actually have most responses. So they would love more discussion of ethical considerations, especially have a transparent, open conversation about AI's environmental impacts, and also learn about the trade-off of using AI. We also had a conversation, maybe as the educators, you can actually turn the environmental impact of AI into a lesson plan, right? You ask the students to investigate and explore and learn how AI could impact the environment and turn that into a lesson plan to have more dialogue and conversation about it. And then I also asked the students, okay, what recommendations? This is the question I also want to pose to the audience here. I would love to hear from you. What recommendations do you have for how environmental education should navigate tensions between the positive use of AI and its negative impacts, especially those affecting the environment? And those are just a few responses from my students. And I think educating people on trade-offs is very important. Also have the choice for people to use or not use, and person's ideas first, and the AI, using AI as a tool, not to replacing our teaching or learning. With that, another question I want to also get a recommendation from the audience is also like, how do you engage those young learners, like undergraduates, future environmental educators? How to engage them into the conversation, right? It's very challenging if they are fundamentally against using AI, but how can you still engage them? So with that, I'm going to share this link in the chat. I put together one-page resources with the links and some of the resources for educators to use. But thank you so much. I'm happy to take any questions.
That's wonderful, Yue. Thank you very much. You've packed so much in there. I'm sure heads are buzzing, but that's been fantastic from sort of the practitioner working with students and using AI. And fantastic question here from Kendra Liddicoat that I'm going to put to you now, which is, do you think your students were less likely to use AI in unauthorized ways because you incorporated AI into your course?
Thank you so much, Kendra, for that question. I think based on the survey, right, they mentioned they want to have a choice. Maybe if I open it up in the beginning, I mentioned like, okay, this is optional. I'm not sure. Maybe more of them will be more willing to try it. But in the beginning, I thought, oh, this is so helpful AI. I heard so many good things about that. AI can help students to learn. So I actually require them to chat with AI about the readings. I thought maybe that may create a little negative experience for them. I'm not sure. So that's why I said it's an experiment. I may try differently next time I teach it. Yeah, so to write the reflection papers. So I think now I reflect on maybe for some assignments, maybe AI should not be used at all. Like, some assignments are really about like self-reflection, but for some assignments, AI can play a role. So it's hard. Sometimes you have to balance where to encourage students to use and where to, restrict this use. But that's a good question. I'd love to hear your suggestions great.
Just another one, maybe you can pop in the chat, the reference for the national survey you referenced in the presentation. I think I see, Chris, you've been doing it throughout the evening so far. Yue and Andrew, I'm sure you'll follow suit that as the questions go in the chat, we won't have time for all of them.
Sure.
So as they go in the chat, if you can just happily, troll through and answer as you go, that would be really helpful. I'm going to throw one out just for badness. I'm going to throw a question out for all of you just to break up before we go into the final speak. And that's, does AI ever admit that it doesn't know, or does it make up stuff or give you your best guess when it doesn't know when you're asking it things?
I think sometimes you did get a really bad responses. They tend to make up things, especially with the citations, the fake citations. They kind of make up things. But it's just again, it really depends on the data trained, right? It could be biased. It could give you some good summaries. I think the little black box there. So sometimes really, you ask the same question different time you get totally different answers. So I don't have exact answer for that, but I just think we have to be very cautious about its output, not to trust everything. Maybe cross-check different sources will be helpful.
Thank you. Chris, Andrew, anything to add to that, or you?
I'd just add AI ultimately wants to please you. So it wants to bring back something that you like. It's probabilistic, like we talked about. So for tasks that require 100% perfection, it is not there. For tasks that require 90% accuracy, can be pretty good. So, like Yue was saying, requires double checking. And because it wants to please you, the more specific you are in what your needs are. So, if you give it a task to get research, you need to also specify, okay, what standard does that research need to meet? Does it need to meet the What Works Clearinghouse 5.0 rigorous standards? And it must be an RCT, et cetera, et cetera. It will be more accurate than if you just ask for research broadly.
Okay. Well, somebody in the chat has suggested we ask AI, and then somebody has done just that. Without reading it all out, because you've got it in front of you, it does say I can sometimes make things up. So we'll stop there and we'll move on to our third speaker. And thank you again, Yue, for that fascinating insight into the realities of trying to incorporate EE and AI into environmental education. So I'm going to introduce now our final speaker for this evening, which is Andrew Powers, and he's an AI field naturalist, which has me thinking of you going out with a net to try and catch AI or something. I don't know. You're going to have to explain that one for us, Andrew. And you're a field naturalist with Greentime.ai, where you help mission-driven organizations explore and navigate AI adoption with practical, ethically guided training. And drawing on 20 years as a co-founder of Peer Associates, a consultancy specializing in evaluation and organizational development for environmental education organizations. Andrew brings deep roots in the EE community to questions about AI's role in our work and our lives, and is working towards a future where AI serves human flourishing rather than concentrating power in extractive systems, developing approaches that help organizations use AI without compromising their values or mission. So, Andrew, the floor is yours.
Thank you. That's realizing what a grand lead up that is. It's not an easy question to answer. Really, today, what you're going to hear from me is just the struggle that I have been in trying to figure out, can we use this thing ethically? So that's, what I'm going to dive into. Hopefully I don't go too dark on people. Stick with me, but I see, there's just a lot to unpack. This is my very favorite topic. I have spent a lot of time with AI since it came out and have thought a lot about it. And now that we're trying to train people and using it in sensible and ethical ways, the questions just keep getting deeper. So just a little context, like Chris, showed us the big picture. There's a great opportunity for EE right now. EE is or education is shifting, from test scores to durable skills, creativity, critical thinking. He named the elephant in the room, the environmental impact. I do want to talk more about that. And Yue, showed us some practical work. Her students really wrestling with AI and EE, and interesting to see that many chose not to use it. I thought that was very, very thoughtful and provocative. So it sets up sort of where I'm trying to explore today, and that there is this real tension and real costs, and we are really in the midst of trying to figure out what to do about that. And so I hope that I've been seeing Imani in the chat really pushing hard against this. So I'm here for you. We're gonna dive deep into your questions about, how can we possibly justify working with this tool. Judy, so what we're up against right now, it's not, certainly in the US, probably around the world, it's not the easiest time for EE. Budgets are tightening. We've got, funding cuts in school districts and state agencies, federal programs. There's fewer resources available. As we all know, the global environmental challenges only seem to be mounting. We've got, climate instability, biodiversity loss, water security, all the wicked problems that Chris mentioned earlier. We've got a lot of pressure on education, always. It hasn't relented. I'm always feeling the pain of teachers when we talk to them. There's just a lot of pressure on what to teach and how to teach, and there's increased scrutiny on curriculum. Parents and administrators are more up in their faces than ever. There's more responsibility, fewer resources, and now they're all being told, you got to use AI. Here's the next thing. So, there's a lot to deal with. Hopefully, is my whole slide showing up? I don't see the very bottom of it. Anyway, it probably is.
Yes, it is, Andrew.
Okay, I don't know why my screen, I don't see it, but yeah, it's we're losing ground. Thank you, Cindy. I can see that in the chat. I can't see the bottom of it there. Yes, we are losing ground a bit. So that said, I've worked a lot with AI, and I'm truly astonished by what this tool can do. And the AI we have today is the worst AI we're ever going to have. This thing is accelerating at an astonishing pace. And it's remarkable. And it to me represents the possibility for genuine cognitive enhancement in humans, like not just convenience and things are done faster, but like we can really expand our capabilities. And I think, I've looked across the field. I'm always looking like, show me, hear a lot of bad news, because I'm always reading about data centers and all the concerns of technology and how it's changing our relationships, everything AI is doing, a lot of bad news, but I look for the good news, and it's really out there. You see across fields, like amazing work in conservation where people are using big machine learning models to process 7 million wildlife images from post-wildfire Australia in weeks instead of years. There's just looking at Amazon deforestation. There's ways to work with data now that are empowering conservation organizations to do incredible work. There have been some studies on using AI in education, see students closing the gap when they've got, individualized attention from AI tutors. There have been groups in social justice, like analyzing, millions of posts to map disinformation campaigns. There's, amazing scientific discovery every day that we're hearing about, new drugs being advanced, medical advances, working to cure diseases. Like there's amazing stuff happening. It is a real power. And it is, just every day. There's so much to see that is happening, that is being accelerated. So, the question for us is, so what is that? What is that? You can, I'm not ready to move forward yet. What is that power for environmental educators? How can we best leverage this tool to really amplify our work in ways that we haven't experienced before? I think, it is, who is it? Someone said, we're not solving the problem. I've been evaluating EE work for 20 years, and I'm like, are we getting anywhere? I'm not really clear. I'm not really clear that we're succeeding. And I feel the challenge. And I'm like, okay, what is the superpower we can get? How can environmental educators use this tool to achieve something we haven't accomplished before? What does that look like? And I think this is an incredibly powerful tool. I'm very passionate that we cannot leave this tool on the table despite our misgivings. We have to figure out how to pick up this tool, even if it burns our hands to do so. So let's move on to the next. I'm sorry, I'm not advancing slides today. So the paradox here is what I have really struggled with. I just don't know that there is an ethical way to use a technology that's fundamentally extractive. And so I'm going to talk a little about corporate AI. These are the big ones. ChatGPT is going to hit 1 billion weekly users. It is a monster corporation. There's an incredible amount of money and power being concentrated there. And when we look at Google and OpenAI and Microsoft and Meta, and even the more ethical companies, like I'll try to slow down. As I get excited, I talk too fast. Slowing it down. even some of the more ethical companies like Anthropic and Mistral, it's an extractive technology. And by that, really what I mean is, all the stuff you can imagine. These data centers are enormous. They use an incredible amount of material. We're mining, cobalt in Congo. We're pulling up all kinds of lithium. A big data center can use 2,000 tons of copper. If anyone's ever seen an open pit copper mine, it's a disaster. Like it's really ugly to build these things. It's a mess. And then there's the question of all the knowledge. We've all heard about like the entire, corpus of human knowledge has been scraped from the internet and anywhere else they can get it. And very little credit to the authors, to the creators of knowledge, all the artists that have had their work taken for AI art generation. All of this is like, there's real concerns, very little compensation, very little credit for the people who put all of their work into this. And then the question of power, these, like I said, 1 billion people a week using ChatGPT, like what is that doing? What does that mean about this sort of concentration of cognition? That's intense. It's the fastest growing app that was ever invented. I think it was 100 million users in the first month or something crazy. So that's pretty intense to concentrate that kind of power in corporate hands. And what kind of dependency we're creating on that. So, I have a lot of concerns. I have a lot of concerns. So when as environmental educators, we use corporate AI, we're making a power imbalance choice where we get these benefits while others pay these externalized costs that they never consented to. And so, I'm not going to have good answers for you, but I'm going to continue wrestling with this. So, when we use these extractive tools to teach about extraction, what exactly are we teaching? And I think, UA students really saw this. They were like, you know what? I don't want to use this. They cited it's a sustainable drain of natural resources. They wanted authentic creation. So I think, that's not just resistance, like that's sophisticated analysis. Let's move along. So, I've been on the path of like, well, but we have good intentions, right? That's what I said. Like we got to, there's an important struggle we're in. We got to use these tools. We're working for good, right? We can use this tool. It's okay for us to use it, isn't it? If we say our use is justified. But that doesn't, I tried to attack all my opinions from different ethical standpoints, and they didn't hold up all that well, because if one of us says, well, but my intentions are good, so my use is justified. Well, how does that scale? If we all say that, what kind of impact are we having? I'm not a philosopher nor an ethicist, but it's difficult when you get into, well, the ends justify the means of what I'm doing when you look at what this technology is. I worry about, I try to teach people about, I can see Imani in the chat there, the path to hell is paved with good intentions. Yeah. Yes, I'm on that path. So, and I'm trying to teach people, we spent 4 hours with the staff of NAAE yesterday, trying to get into what does it mean? How can we use this? What is conscious ethical use? But, if we just teach people to use this tool responsibly, is that enough if it doesn't include sort of fighting these underlying systems of oppression and extraction? There's a lot of passionate activists in this world that I'm hearing them. I'm hearing them saying it's not enough to say, well, I can justify my use. So can you use extraction ethically when using it is the teaching? What we practice, we become. And if we teach students, well, use this to solve environmental problems by turning to these corporate AI systems, what are we really teaching them? Dependency on this corporate infrastructure, that thinking happens through proprietary systems, that efficiency matters more than process. They're hard questions. So I should be watching the time. I'm probably going to talk too long because I always do get too excited about these things.
You're fine so far, Andrew. You have another 5 minutes if you want. So, yeah.
Okay, well, 5 minutes. Okay, let me carry along. So yes, I'll be honest. I got to be honest about where I'm at. Like, I really love using AI. I use it all the time, and I would not be here doing this without working with it. Like, it really has helped me expand into new areas and do new things. And I'm not outside some system telling what people to do. And, here's what I've learned from being stuck in this is like, you can see these costs really clearly. Like, I think about this every day, and still I'm incredibly compelled by the power and the value of this tool. And I really want the people who are fighting for environmental justice, for climate action, for equity, I want them to have this power. I want those people wielding this tool to advance their causes. So my honest take at the moment is like, corporate AI is fundamentally extractive. Like, I don't think I can argue my way out of that. It's just, other people, we're externalizing a lot of costs. At the same time, this isn't just about AI. There's data centers are not a new thing. AI did not invent the data center. Everything we do on a phone, the entire cloud, this has all been here. AI is like 10 to 15% of data centers. Our entire digital footprint is rather heavy. They give us the slight fluffy idea of the cloud is actually like a giant industrial monster. But I think AI is big enough that it's brought it to our attention. So I think it's a good moment. Like we've been getting nibbled by little fish, and suddenly there's a big shark that's making us look like, wow, what is this technology? And, I'd be hypocritical if I was only talking about my use of AI. I'm still on the previous slide. I drive, I flew to California. That's a lot of energy. I take a hot shower. I eat some meat, not too much, but, I can't. And I try to say, well, it fits in my carbon footprint. I work from home. I don't commute, but I think that's a tough, I can't use that to sort of rationalize away that I think the potential harm that AI has in so many ways. It's difficult. We teach systems thinking in environmental ed. We teach that individual choices within a broken system aren't enough, and I realize those lessons apply to me. So stuck with that. So yeah, let's move along. Next slide here. Again, this is just to quickly reiterate. So what we're doing, I think, when we use this without addressing the systemic issues, I think there's a hidden curriculum in this that, we're going to teach that extraction is how good work can get done. We're going to teach that powerful tools are extractive, and we just need to be conscious about how we use them. We might teach that efficiency matters more than justice. We might teach that individual choices can fix systemic problems. And, we can strengthen all this corporate infrastructure and market dominance and normalizations of surveillance and data extraction and all these things. So I think in using these tools, we got to be honest that to some degree is what can be happening. And that's problematic. However, let's move to the next slide. I do think there is a way out of this. And I wish I knew more about it. I wish I was talking only about this, but there's been a lot to learn in my life, and I'm only now learning about this. There is, and I think this was alluded to a little bit, there are different sorts of AI being built. The future does not have to be a fight for dominance between Google and ChatGPT and OpenAI. There are people building open source models. They're building local tools. They're building community governed projects. These things are happening. There is a future when, if you don't need to use the most powerful thing, there is a future where we will run AI on our laptops. We'll run it at home. It'll be a model that we can control, that it's not going to be a complete black box. We can adjust it. And it's not going to be attached to a giant data center. It's going to require electricity, but it might run off your solar panels at home. It's not going to be, they're not going to take all of your interactions to train their future models. There's a lighter future. I think Chris mentioned, what we really need to talk about is the energy that's powering this. And there's still going to be massive AI because the demand will keep increasing. It'll get more powerful, but I think our own use can change. Different systems are being built. Are we ready for these? These aren't ready for prime time. It's not easy. You can't just log in and start doing these. You might have to download something to your home machine and figure out how to use it. But I think that is where we need to go. Again, and this is something I'm just trying to learn about. And I would like to be pushing us that direction, that we need to be looking at that AI is something that does not have to be part of this massive extractive system. And I think about when we look at some changes we've been through, it takes a lot of fossil fuels to build solar panels and wind turbines. It's taken huge investment to build electric vehicle infrastructure. That did not come cheap. So I feel like we could be in a transitional place where we're still going to have to use these tools to build what we need. And I think we need to work on building that. And I wish, again, that I knew more about this and how to get there. But I think there is a different future. And I feel like this, as environmental educators, if we want to move on to the next slide here, this is where I think we have an obligation, really. We're not like everyone else in this conversation. We have an obligation because of what we're trying to teach. And if we teach systems thinking, if we teach about extraction and externalities, if we teach about power analysis, if we think about what it means to consume things in an unethical system, then we need to think about, policy change and collective action and not just consumer choice. We can't let ourselves or our students off the hook of thinking about my individual impact is not that big, or everyone else is doing it, or I'm being told to do this, or, we can't undermine ourselves with these arguments. We teach our values through our practice. What we practice, we become. The path shapes the walker. So I think there's a lot of work. I mean, there's always a lot of work ahead. I know that, I'm just another voice saying, here's another big, giant, catastrophic, wicked problem that we have to solve as the people who are trying to do this. But I really think this one needs to be addressed. I think we need to lead this transition, to use these powerful tools critically while trying to build something better. That's environmental education. That's, I think, what we try to do. So yeah, moving on, I'll just quickly, these are the questions I'm still wrestling with. I've got lots of webinars next month. Come back. I may have answers, but when is AI necessary versus just convenient? I think I'm trying to make the case like this is important work and it's necessary that we use it, but where's that balance between like, oh, it was easy to do this. UA students saw it. They're like, this is not necessary. We can do our own thinking. We don't need that convenience, but where do we make that balance? What about the urgency? Like I said, we've got real environmental challenges. We need to advance. EE needs to advance as a field. We gotta make progress. So how do we balance that, with the ethical questions? How do we navigate this transition? Like I said, corporate AI is super dominant right now. There's alternatives growing, but they're not equal. Like, how do we support them? And how do we make the decisions? We need a lot more dialogue. We did a training yesterday with NAAE staff about, I was framing AI as an invasive species. It behaves very much like one. I think it's a good analogy. It's very extractive and consumptive and outcompeting native things. And we need to make decisions about how to do this. So yeah, we're working on frameworks. How do we make those decisions? So, okay, enough of me talking. I'm sorry if it's been 100 miles an hour. Again, it's an enormous topic. There's just so much to get into. We need more dialogue. And I'm so appreciative that we've been given these platforms to talk about it. So, yeah.
Thank
There
you,
are paths.
Andrew. Sorry.
What's that?
No, you go ahead, Andrew.
Okay, I'll take everyone. Deep sigh. Take a moment. Breathe. There are different paths ahead of us, as there always are.
I'm sure everybody's taking a bit of a sigh. There's been so much information over the sort of course of the 3 20-minute presentations that we're all going to have to go away and digest that. I have just time for one question for you, Andrew, in line with what you've been talking about. And it's somebody saying, Hollister Hunt has posted this, appreciate the positivity at the aspirational future. What can we do to help it happen and not let things go down the dark path? So are there practical things people could be doing now in terms of choices or decision making around the use of AI integration into EE that actually help us steer a better path? I think hopefully I'm interpreting that question correctly.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. I think, looking at the models we use is important. I try to work with Claude mostly so far. I think Anthropic, as one of the major labs, is more ethical. They're more concerned about safety. And they're less focused on just massively making money like ChatGPT and OpenAI. Like, I'm very suspicious of OpenAI, to be honest. So look at the models. Mistral is a lab out of France. They have Le Chat. I think they're more open source, more European vibe there. That's worth checking out. And I think if people can learn about the open source models and how to run them yourself, like Hugging Face is an enormous community of people doing this. So I think, look at the tools you're using and what they're connected to and what they mean in terms of using resources and concentrating power. So that's huge. And I think there's a lot of issues that there's people working for justice in this situation. There's people working for where are these data centers going to be sited. There's people working for how do we compensate the people whose data has been scraped. There's people working for, we didn't even get into some of the dark stuff like the data labelers in Kenya who had PTSD because they were exposed to such awful content. People are fighting for them. So there's a lot of, as always in our field, there's activists who are working on this, like figure out those fights and get in them. What works? How do you want to be involved? There's a lot of people who are looking at the issues being created here. So I would say, just as we always do, keep educating ourselves. I hate to, of course, we all have so many issues. Everyone is working on so much. And I don't like to throw something else in our laps, but I feel like this is the big one. This is all consuming and all encompassing and is creeping into everything, just like an invasive species. So I think if you want to get involved, there's ways to do it.
And one other question then, and I'm going to throw the floor open now to the speakers. We haven't got much time, but we've got just a couple of minutes, and that's somebody's talked about the geographic bias, and are there ways that we can avoid that, or anything that we can do to avoid that in terms of, the data that's being trawled by AI, is already biased. Is there anything that can be done to try and mitigate that in any way? So I don't know if open to any of the speakers now. If any of you have a thought on that, then please fire away.
I can share one practice I use to try to mitigate bias, and I use the like a multi-model verification. Anytime I come up with something, like I'll usually work in Claude. Like I said, we might come up with a thought piece or a paper or whatever, and then I'll say to Claude, like, develop an incredibly rigorous critique of this, and then I'll give it to 5 other AI models and run it by them, and they will tear the crap out of it. Like, when I was trying to work on this talk, I got brutalized time after time after time. They said, you're completely wrong, because they all have different training and all the models have different biases. And so I feel like sort of by averaging across them, you can mitigate some of that. And it really helps you get out of, with the bias of whatever model you're working with. Because I'll make something, I'll be like, this is great. And then I'll go get feedback from a couple other models and they'll be like, this is awful. I'm like, oh, okay. I should rethink this. So I think that helps to some degree. Every model is different training data and different sort of tuning for the user.
So somebody's going to invent comparetheaimarket.com, and you just run it through that and get the summary of all the answers from all the AIs. No, there's an idea, but I'm going to draw this to a close now. Just we're running to the last minute, so thank you again to all our speakers. You've been fantastic. I've learned so much. I hope everybody else has too. And if nothing else, I have lots of links to new resources and materials. They know you, and they probably come to you with questions. So thank you again for taking the time to present, and thank you to everybody for turning up tonight. I know lives are busy, and you've taken the time to spend another hour learning, which is what it's about. So thank you for coming along tonight. And if you're not already linked into the GEEP, then you should go to the website, thegeep.org. And if you're not on EE Pro, where there's a lot of resources for environmental educators, then eepro.nwaawe.org is also a website worth linking into. So thank you, and I'll hand you now back to Judy.
Ian, thank you so much, and thanks to all of our speakers, and thank you all for joining and the great conversation in the chat. We have a lot of different views on AI with the people here, and that is what we are trying to do with webinars like this, is hear perspectives from people who are thinking about issues that are impacting all of us. So thank you all for being actively engaged. Ian, thanks for helping to moderate and the transitions. I wish we had another couple of hours. And we just want to wish you all a wonderful holiday season. And we did get a lot of questions that we didn't have time to answer. And it just means we need to keep thinking about this, as every single speaker has said. We have a lot to learn and a lot of opportunities for environmental ed to take a leadership role in how we use AI responsibly to do the work we need to do. So thank you all. Have a wonderful holiday season. And this is our last webinar for 2026. So hope you have a lot of good time with friends and family. Thank you all, to our speakers, to the NAAE team, and to all of you. Thank you so much. Take care, everybody.